Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much. We'd like to welcome you all to our work session. So we're going to move along as quickly as we can. Just as a point of reference, the Trade Point Atlantic is a contract with the county. We normally don't take testimony, but of course today we will. So in an effort of time, what we're going to do when we get there, we're going to ask people to, because we have so many people to sign up, we're going to probably knock it down to 2 minutes to speak. And we would ask people to think about, if you're saying the same thing, maybe you can sort of like say copy, edit, paste, or ditto, or something like that to move things along. But right now, we'll get right into our regular order of business, and we'll start with page 1, Dr. Branch, Bill 93-18. Good afternoon, Dr. Branch.
Good afternoon, Council and Chairman. For 9318, the administration is requesting a supplemental appropriation of federal funds in the amount of $113,000 for our Child Advocacy Center. The Child Advocacy Center is the center where we deal with our children who have been exposed to sexual and physical abuse and neglect. And the funds will be used predominantly for a social worker to serve the victims of the children of sexual abuse and their families, to provide training and also to provide training to the social workers and the community-based therapists in what we call a trauma response training.
Thank you, Dr. Branch. Any questions on Bill 93-18? Okay, Dr. Branch, we'll move along to page 5. Okay. Victims of Crime Act.
Okay, so Bill 94-18, the administration is requesting a supplemental appropriation of federal funds again, totaling $165,836. Basically, these funds will be used to support the salaries and benefits of 2 part-time social workers to provide comprehensive support services to victims of domestic violence and their families. So what happens at this particular time, just to let the council know, is that we have children who sustain a lot of violence and a lot of problems and issues. And many times we have to go into those homes and take those children out. What happens when that child has been physically abused or neglected? Many times the wife or the mother is being abused also. And what we do is we have to take the children out. But when we take the children out, it leaves the woman there exposed. And then obviously a lot of violence occurs because then he blames it on her that we took the children. Mm-hmm. So we have to have another social worker go in to deal specifically with the domestic violence to be able to help her through that. The other issue that we have is a lot of times the neglect piece of it is because the mom is not protecting the children from the abuser. So we've got to work with her to get her the strength to be able to protect her children so we can reunite them.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Councilwoman Bevins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Branch, I'm curious, is there a rise in these types of abuse cases? Are we seeing an increase?
So we are seeing a little bit of an increase, and the reason why I think is because we're not getting the word out to be able to have people report it. But in addition to that, when we talk about all this training for our staff, we not only train our social workers, but we also train our field workers, and those are the ones who do the benefits, and we train them on being able to spot some of the issues that a person who's having domestic violence may have, and then they can report that, and then we can actually provide services. Mm-hmm. So at this point now, I think it's more of an increase in the identification of people who are suffering from domestic violence, as opposed to just an increase in domestic violence. Mm-hmm. We're actually identifying more.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Crandall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Branch, I just want to say thank you for your work on both of these bills that we're considering today. I've visited the Sexual Abuse Forensic Examination Center at GBMC. In fact, the nurse that runs that center is a constituent of mine. I'm sure you're aware of that facility at GBMC and the work that they do. And so in knowing when they're the first, the first responder takes them there, and then they do, that examination occurs, and the evidence that the state's attorney needs to prosecute is done, and then then there's criminal charges and all that. The police do their thing, state's attorney does theirs, but in these two bills, you're really concentrating on what happens after all of that stuff happens. So they have the worst day of their life, perhaps, and then you can't just let them go. So
Right.
these are necessary things, and I appreciate your work on it.
And I just want to clarify one thing, Councilman Crandall, is that we actually also see those victims first before GBMC at times also. And so we're doing the physical exam and the forensic exams and forensic investigation at the Child Advocacy Center.
Thank you.
Councilman Quirk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, Dr. Branch, clearly your department does a lot of really important work and definitely, obviously, a very important program. In our notes, it mentioned about 1,891 clients served in fiscal year 18, and then estimated that it will be 2,550 clients served in fiscal year 19. Is that what I would consider a pretty large increase due to identification, or where's that pretty big jump up coming from?
We believe that there are a multiplicity of people out there that we have not touched. And so by having the additional staffing, we believe that we'll be able to touch those lives.
Councilman.
Thank you, Dr. Branch. This is our opportunity to ask you questions since you're being offered for reappointment by the county executive. And I just want to offer two thoughts and a question. First, I would hope that you would take a fresh look at the management of the animal shelter. I agree that this was not under your direct supervision to the last administration, but I really hope we do take a fresh and more robust look at how the shelter is operated. Second, please continue to do all in your power to reduce opioid deaths. This is an issue that all of us care about. We are consistent with the deaths in other jurisdictions, but please really do everything within your jurisdiction to make sure we are tackling this issue. And I would like to ask your help in please helping to get those signs approved that the Daniel Torsch Foundation would like to place at police departments. Other jurisdictions advertise their fatalities from opioid deaths. So should we. It's not something we should be afraid to showcase. This is a problem, and people need to know the scale of that problem.
Okay.
Please work with me. I've already expressed this to the new administration. I know they're looking at it, but please work with me to get to a yes on this.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I will say, if I can respond, if I may
Sure.
respond, that there's a three-pronged approach if you look nationally and actually internationally as what happens and what works when we talk about opioid addiction. And those three things is medication-assisted therapy, which is the methadone programs, and also buprenorphine. There's the residential treatments,
Right.
and there's the recovery housing. And so what I say is I am totally and 100% committed to being able to help out and work with the opioid epidemic. And then I would ask the council to work with me on that three-pronged approach, because those three things are what's going to be necessary in order for us to make a difference in the lives of our constituents.
Yeah, I've actually toured the facility in northern Hartford County that's operated up there. It's outstanding. I would love to have some sort of facility like that here. But please, in the short term, do everything you can to make sure we get to a yes on those signs. Thank you.
Councilman Quirk.
Yeah, Dr. Branch, I definitely appreciate all the work you've done, especially with the opioid epidemic we talk about almost every work session. I'm just curious while you're here, the phone number we have set up, the 410-88-REACH number, have we received a lot of calls? Has that had the intent that we've hoped
Yes,
it would?
we receive a goodly number of calls there, and when we do, based on what the person is asking for and requesting, we're able to respond with our peer recovery specialists. So we have a lot of families who call because they need information. We actually will go out and do Narcan training on the spot if we need to. We work with the police and with EMS so that if somebody needs some help at that particular time, we're working with that person and or the family. So we get a goodly number of calls, and we're working with anyone who calls in. Yes. And we've extended the hours to midnight.
Good, good. Thank you.
Any additional questions, comments? Well, we thank you, Dr. Branch. I want to thank you for all your work and all your efforts. You are a shining star, and you make me feel better at night knowing that you're handling your business out there. Always available. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll call Ms. Andrea Van Arsdale. We'll move along to page 8, Community Assistant Network. Ms. Van Arsdale, how are you today? Good.
Good afternoon. The administration is requesting approval of 2 contracts to operate county-owned homeless shelters. And I have brought Colleen Mahoney, who is the expert on the funding and the homeless situation in Baltimore County, in case you have any questions. Under Fiscal Matter 2, the administration is requesting approval of a contract with Community Assistant Network Incorporated to operate the shelter facilities at the Eastern Family Resource Center in Rosedale and the West Side Men's Shelter in Catonsville. As you may recall, the new and expanded Eastern Family Resource Center opened in October of 2017 and is composed of the Women and Family Shelter with 220 beds, the Men's Shelter with 15 beds, and the Family Transitional Shelter of 10 units with a maximum of 38 beds. The West Side Shelter has 125 beds for men only. The contract for these facilities will begin on January 1st of the next year and continue through June 30th, 2019, and will automatically renew for 4 additional one-year periods with the option to further extend the initial term or any renewal term for an additional 90 days. The total estimated compensation is $16,056,620.
Any questions? Moving right along to page 12, St. Vincent de Paul.
Yes. Fiscal Matter 3, the administration is requesting approval of a contract with St. Vincent de Paul of Baltimore Incorporated to operate the Hannah Moore Shelter in Reisterstown for homeless women and families. This shelter has 85 beds. It's the same contract duration as we spoke about for CAN, beginning January 1st, 2019, continuing to June 30th, 2019, and automatically renew for 4 additional one-year periods with the option to further extend the initial term or any renewal term an additional 90 days. Total compensation here is $4,331,749.
Any questions? Well, let me just take this opportunity to thank you, Ms. Van Arsdale, for all your service. I understand you're retiring,
Yes, I am.
and I did get the message. I thank you very much.
You're so very welcome. Although you did have to wait about a week and a half before you called me back.
Well, sometimes I lose messages. Get so many of them. And I wait late at night, and it's like, hey, look at these messages I missed.
I figured.
But I certainly appreciate all your service and all your work. And I certainly appreciate all the work that the Community Assistance Network does. I know the hard work they do. I know that we probably can never, I shouldn't say never, but I know how difficult it is to meet the needs in terms of homelessness. But I do know that we've been doing, in my opinion, a fairly good job in terms of doing what we can to address that issue. And I know that the people that run the shelters are working very, very hard, and they care an awful lot. And I think, that's probably the best we can do at this time. Not that we're giving up. We want to continue to do more.
We
But
are.
we're certainly doing our part. I believe this administration, along with the council, have devoted a lot of money to homeless shelters and services.
Well, if I may, I would like to take a little point of stepping in, but I'd like to say it's been a real pleasure and a privilege to work with the council. You're an excellent body. I leave after 35 years with Baltimore County, and it's time for me and my retired husband to begin our second phase. But I leave with no guilt because you have an excellent staff within the planning department to carry forward not only the work that we do with the homeless, but we have so many public service grants that we give out. We have affordable housing. We deal with zoning. We deal with ag preservation. We deal with development review, historic preservation. It's a great department, and they will carry you through. And I leave with no regrets and a lot of very fond memories for to borrow a little bit from Mr. Petticord, the professional friendships that you make over 35 years.
Thank you, Ms. Van Arsdale. Councilwoman Bevins?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say I knew you before I was in this elected office, and I know the work that you've done in that agency as well as economic development. And that's where we first met, and I've truly appreciated all the work that you've done on behalf of the citizens of Baltimore County. And I'm sorry to see you go, especially as a woman in a department head seat. So I'm hoping that the county executive will remember we're losing a woman and, get some more women in these seats. I hope so.
Although
anyway.
Jeff
So
Mayhew is a
I wish
great
you
person.
well, and I wish you well on your journey with your husband. And it's good that you retire young so you can enjoy the second chapter of your life.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Councilman
Goodness, I think
Marks and then Court.
I think I met you when I was in high school.
I am feeling so old.
Back when David Fields was director, I guess, and you came out to the Perry Hall Improvement Association.
Actually, I started with Norman Gerber, so that's a really moving it back.
Yeah, but you have done a terrific job. We haven't always agreed on everything, but we've worked in tandem on a lot of things. The redevelopment of downtown Towson is part of your legacy. And you have helped us out of some tough issues. We were talking about homelessness, the prologue issue in the summer of 2017. And I think the council made the right decision there to approve support for prologue with conditions that you helped us draft. That was the right call on that, and I want to thank you for your help with that and wish you the best of success and happiness in the future.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Andrea, it's been a pleasure working with you the last 4 years, even though you said, I'm not even going to repeat what you said on the phone yesterday. I won't do that.
You can tell it. What the heck?
Yeah, well, even though you didn't think it would go so well between us, but
we had a
but
little
it did.
concern, but it turned out really
right.
well.
And when we have disagreed, it was always a professional disagreement, and trying to make logical cases for what we were talking about. And I appreciate that professionalism, and also appreciated your patience in explaining to a new councilman 4 years ago and his staff some really complicated things that your department oversees and undertakes with the variety of endeavors that you all get into. Sometimes we had to ask the same question over and over again in order to gain our understanding of it, and you were very patient in explaining those things with us, and we appreciate it, and we're better for having worked with you for the last 4 years. So thank you for your service.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Councilman Quirk?
Yeah, Andrea, definitely, I just want to say I appreciate working with you. I think CZMP was a great process. I mean, I appreciate everything you do with that. And
it's coming up again.
Yeah, just please, whoever who replaces you, just give me Dennis Works to work with.
Now Dennis is retiring also.
And then I appreciate your work on bicycle and pedestrian issues.
Yes.
I think with the Don Mueller match that just happened, I think that's really promising for the future. I'm glad we kind of pushed through that. And also appreciate your work that you've done tirelessly for affordable housing as well. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions?
Hi, Andrea. I have not known you since high school, but I've known you for a long time, and I just want to thank you for your service. I can tell you as a fellow planner, you're thought very highly of in the profession, around the region and around the state. I also know that your team members in the planning department think very highly of you, and we're going to miss you. But I hope you have a great time, and certainly wish you well. And so
I
thank you.
almost made it with no tears.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if I could, the president of my community association is here, and I'd like to acknowledge him, from the Sudbrook Park Association, Mr. Dean Rundell. So thank you for coming, Dean.
You, Dean. And without further ado, Ms. Van Arsdale, thank you again for all your service. You've been a terrific person to work with. You've been what I consider a friend. Your heart's in the right place. You've always been accessible to me. And unlike Mr. Marks here, I think we're agreed all the time. So it's real easy. But thank you so much, and I wish you well in your retirement.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Still have to vote.
Okay. Moving right along.
Okay,
I think
vote
that's
right
it. Thank you, Ms. Van
now.
Arsdale.
So confused now.
Thank you. Moving on to page 16, Mr. Keith Dorsey. Good afternoon, Mr. Dorsey.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the County Council. We have a request for approval of Fiscal Matter 4, which is for foreign language telephone interpretation services. It's a request for a total of 3-year, 10-month period of time. We are in fact in the middle of a less than $25,000 contract. We're asking for approval for the balance of time through May 10th, 2019, and then 3 one-year renewals after that. The total amount for the services which are used by both 911 and the Health and Human Services Department and Police and Fire, the total amount for that period of time would not exceed $533,225.
Any questions? Real fast, I think it's important service that we provide. When people dial 911, it's very important that we have people on the other line that can communicate with them. So, no additional questions or comments. We'll move on to page 20, Architectural Services.
This brings up actually Fiscal Matters 5 and 6, which deal with architectural services for basically space planning. We have the contract, actually 5 contracts associated with this particular item for a total that's not to exceed $400,000 over a 5-year, 4-month period of time. First of all, there is a Tier 1 for space that is for projects up to 1,000 square feet. There are 2 vendors that are being proposed, Miramar Ponte Miller, as well as Frederick Wood Associates as Tier 1 contractors, and then the Tier 2 being the Murphy and Dittenhofer, Johnson and Miraran and Thompson, and then Mans Woodward Studios as being 3 contractors for projects greater than 1,000 square feet. And so, as I said, the total for all 5 combined would not exceed $400,000 over the term, the full term of the contracts.
Any questions? Okay, you covered Tier 2 and 1?
Tier 2 and 1. So that was Fiscal Matter 5 was Tier 2. There were 3 contracts for that. Tier 1 was the 2 contracts.
Okay. No questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Dorsey. Move on to page 23, Amy Grassi. Hi, Amy.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Fiscal Matter 7 is the request by the administration for the approval of a contract to acquire a repetitively flooded property totaling just under 1/4 of an acre at 1702 Lenore Court in the Gwynn Oak area of Baltimore County. The proposed acquisition price is $153,000. The current owner is Lisa Ann Horowitz. The $153,000 price is the appraised price, and the funding is a portion of county funds. 25% of the acquisition price is required as a county match for the FEMA flood hazard mitigation funds totaling $114,750,000.
Councilman Quirk?
Just a quick question, Amy. Is this the last one, or do we still have a couple more?
One more.
One more?
This is the fifth.
Yeah, thank you for your work on it.
Sure.
Any additional questions, comments? Okay, Ms. Grassi, guess we move on to page 26.
Yes, sir. Fiscal Matter 8 is a contract for the transfer of ownership of 3 3/4 acres in the Cockeysville area of Baltimore County to the Mayor and City Council of Baltimore. The addresses are 15 Beaver Run Lane and 10919 York Road. These properties are adjacent to the Loch Raven Reservoir property. The county acquired them with FEMA flood mitigation funds similar to the ones we were just discussing with Lenore Court. They are immediately adjacent to the reservoir, and they are linked by a bridge that is actually owned by the reservoir. The bridge is failing and is in need of demolition, and once that bridge is demolished, we won't be able to access the rest of our property. It would be impossible to maintain, and the city had previously expressed interest in taking ownership for the purposes of continuity of wetlands management in that area. So we went to FEMA and requested their approval. We do have their prior written approval in writing in our file, and we have been negotiating with the city for some time, and this is their form. It's an option contract. They have a period of time during which to exercise it. They normally exercise it immediately upon approval through their approval process in the city, through their city council and their Board of Public Works.
Any questions, comments? Thank you, Ms. Grassi.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to move on, Mr. David Likens. This is pursuant to the county charter. This will be considered a public hearing.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Jones, members of the council.
Good afternoon, and congratulations are in order.
Thank you. I
You're
appreciate that.
Sure.
The administration requests your assistance for 2 items. One is to allow this to be a public hearing for our financial assurance plan, and then secondly, to support us with a resolution for our financial assurance plan. The county has a MS4 NPDES permit. Mr. Patoka, I know you weren't here the last time we did this, so I'll give you a little bit of a background on how we got here in the first place. With our MS4 NPDES permit, which also expires December 23rd of this year, it's a 5-year permit that's issued by the state, and as soon as it expires, it will administratively start a new permit. But in that 5-year permit, it requires the county to address stormwater pollutants or TMDLs that impair local waterways and the Chesapeake Bay. The most frequent pollutants cited in that permit are nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment. One of the ways that we are required in that permit, one of the items we're required to do is to restore 20% of the impervious surfaces in Baltimore County that aren't already treated by some kind of stormwater management pond. And we have over 30,000 acres of impervious surface in Baltimore County that aren't treated. And the permit actually specifies that we would have to restore 6,036 acres in the 5-year period of the permit. We do that by a number of different ways that we've been before you before explaining. One is stream restoration projects. We also plant trees. We do shoreline enhancement projects. And we convert old stormwater management ponds using new technology to better do pollutant removals. When Governor Hogan was first elected, he ran on eliminating the stormwater remediation fee, or as some people call it, the ring tax. He called it the ring tax. We used capital funds in this money to do a lot of these projects. When the state passed that legislation, they required in that bill that every county or jurisdiction that there's 10 of us that have Phase 1 environmental permits. We all have to file a financial assurance plan. And what the financial assurance plan does is it shows how much money you spent in the past towards this, how much money you're spending in a two-year window, which in this case is FY 19 and 20. So we're in 19 right now, so it's this year and next year. And how much money we plan on spending in the next 5 years towards these efforts of reducing the pollutants. I have with me today Rob Hirsch, who manages our watershed management and monitoring section, who's the author of our financial assurance plan. And what the figures show, and it's a form that the state gives. It's a very complicated form that is not very intuitive. But at the end of the day, what the form shows is that we do have enough money. We have spent enough money, and we plan on spending enough money in the next 2-year period to cover our obligations.
Councilman Quirk?
Yeah, so question for you in that line of thinking is, I know filing the financial assurance plan shows sufficient funds and resources being committed to reducing and eliminating pollutant discharge in compliance with the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination. Can you tell us specifically how much in resources is being committed for fiscal year 19, fiscal year 20, maybe for the 5-year plan, just so we have a good understanding of what specific numbers that you're talking about? I think there's a common misconception out there in the public that, with the stormwater remediation fee going away, that money just simply not being used. So can you give us the facts on that?
Sure. In FY 19, we have dedicated $33,722,518, and we're projecting FY 20 to spend $16,939,932. And that money comes from a variety of sources and is carried over into several years. It's not something that is all spent just in that 1 year. Actually, interestingly, some of the money in FY 19 is left over from when we had a stormwater remediation fund. It was dedicated at that time to a project that might take 4 years to complete. And it's just now, by the time you design a stream restoration project and get all the plans approved and actually go build it, we're now paying for building some of the projects we did this year with money that was dedicated back when we had the stormwater remediation fee. We also get money from other sources. We have metropolitan bonds that the voters vote for. We have metropolitan district funds we also use, and sometimes we get grants.
And how about over 5 years? Do we have a projected number that we're committed to over the next 5 years?
Well, in the financial assurance plan, it shows that what we've had in the past, and it shows out 5 years from now, the totals of what we're planning on spending after 5 years, $227,959,000.
And which I just got to say, I think that's very significant, because half the time I'm out in public and this issue comes up, I find that the vast majority of citizens, vast majority of taxpayers have no idea how much money we're truly investing for this. And so anything we do for more public awareness, but $227 million over 5 years, that's pretty significant funding level.
That's the total of what we've spent altogether, not just that 5-year period.
From what period?
What year would you say this started? Was it 2010? For the total since 2010. From 2010 through, and the last year in this is 2 years, 2023.
Okay, so about 13 years?
Yeah.
227.
Can't do that in my head.
13, so it's about $17 million per year?
chump change.
So that's a retrospective look, correct, of what we
In
spent in the
perspective.
past?
Yeah, from.
It's what we've done in the past, what we're doing. The financial assurance plan that we're talking about right now is just a 2-year snapshot. In that 2-year snapshot, it's $50 million, but averaged out over the
33
whole
and
10-year
16.
period. FY19 and FY20 add up to $50 million.
Right. Do we go beyond fiscal '20?
We go all the way up, projected out to 23 in this financial assurance plan.
What's the total looking prospectively out into the 6-year plan?
He's doing the math right now.
Thank you.
And what we have in this projected out years here, we have $16,900,000 for the next 4 years, and that was something that we worked with our budget office and to come up with without strapping the future current now county executive. If we want to do more, we can do more, but that was something we thought would handle what we've already seen. And we're going to get a new permit with new requirements in the spring sometime, so it's difficult for us to gauge exactly how much we need until we really see that permit. This is, again, what? That's 19 through 23, 101 million.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the quick math work.
Any additional questions, comments? Mr. Secretary, since this is a public hearing, is anyone signed up to speak?
There are no speakers signed up, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Lykin.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And congratulations, by the way.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. We look forward to an easy confirmation.
Sure.
Now, I guess the grand finale, what we've all been waiting for. Mr. Will Anderson. Mr. Anderson, how are you today? And Mr. Secretary, will you get a chance? Let me see the speakers list. How you doing today, Mr. Anderson?
I'm doing well, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to start with Bill 9518.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. 9518 is a supplemental appropriation. Back in November, we talked about the Tiger grant that we had secured for Trade Point Atlantic, and there was 2 parts. We brought the first appropriation, which you approved. That was the $20 million from the federal government, Department of Transportation, and this is the second half, and that is accepting $1.5 million from Trade Point Atlantic into the county for administration of that same Tiger grant. And you'll remember the grant was aimed at, or excuse me, the whole Tiger program was aimed at improving their port and rail and dredge operations. It's distinct from the separate agreement that we'll talk about in the next, in the fiscal matter.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson, I'm going to reiterate what I said when we voted to approve the appropriation of the Tiger grant with those federal dollars. And that is that this was a competitive grant process where Baltimore County and Trade Point Atlantic was competing against other similar ports and operations throughout the country. And I just want to thank you and the executives from Trade Point Atlantic for securing that investment, not only into the 7th District, but into Baltimore County. It's important because it could have gone to another port to make them more competitive against our region. So job well done. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, this is the first Tiger grant for Baltimore County. It was, and it's a big project for our Public Works team. They really helped push this over the top as well as part of the team. Thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, Mr. Anderson. Guess we'll move right along to the contract. Is that these people? Okay, Mr. Anderson, we're going to ask you to just take a seat over there. We have two speakers on this bill, on the grant. Karen Cruz. Who are you, sir? Who are you?
Mr. Kraft. Mr. Chairman, members of the council, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I sit before you today with a question in mind. Taxpayers were originally told we had to sell off the North Point Government Center, our 27.43-acre Baltimore County Park, for air conditioning of our schools. What we'd like to know is, how is it that millions of dollars of taxpayer money is being given to Trade Point Atlantic, whose owners are billionaires? We'd like to know who is standing up for the community. Bob Stabb, former delegate and Recreation and Parks Director, cannot be here today, but he is with us. We have well over 7,000 signatures on a petition to stop the sale of the North Point Government Center Park, and who support us. The benefit to the community from Trade Point Atlantic needs to be an unbiased assessment of the North Point Government Center, with approximately $18 million for renovations and the fields at Penwood Park. I would like to refer back to a meeting that we had with then candidate Mr. Olszewski at the North Point Government Center with the Sky's the Limit Theater Group. He told us at that meeting that if he were elected Baltimore County Executive, that he would stand with the community, with the new North Point Government Center, and what the community would want in that area. I would ask that the council take this into consideration, because this fight has been going on for 5.5 years, and something has to get done. We ask you for your attention to this matter and hope that we can resolve it in the next few months. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas to all of you.
Thank you, sir. What's your name again?
My name is Chaz Scheidt.
Chaz Scheidt. And we had another speaker, Mr. Charles.
That was me.
Okay. Okay, that settles it. A little confused. Okay, so I take it there's a no-show on Karen Cruz. Is she? She's here? Okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Cruz. Now, Mr. Anderson, you can come back up. And I'm going to take a minute before you get started and just recognize a couple other people in the audience that I saw, and I didn't see them signed up to speak, but I'd like to recognize our former County Executive Tad Venetoulas, who's out there in the audience. Nice to see you, Tad. Also, I saw Senator-elect Corey McCray. Is he still here? Okay, we'll catch him when he comes back. And Delegate-elect John Carden. Always good to see you here. Were you guys interested in speaking? Okay, thank you. Mr. Anderson, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. I want to thank each of you for giving us time in the administration to talk to you about this important project, which you've each done individually, including Councilman Patoka recently. So I appreciate you giving us this extra time. You know, this fiscal matter for the public infrastructure at Trade Point it's really an important moment. Many of us have been working on this for a long time, and it's important not just to the Sparrows Point community and Eastern Baltimore County, but to our county's economy, to our region's economy. It's really important to Maryland. So we're proud as an administration to bring this to you now as a historic public-private infrastructure agreement. So what I'd like to do, I know we've put a lot of documents in front of you last month. What I'd like to do is just walk through kind of the what, why, and how of what this agreement is, and then field questions. I think why is kind of the most important question. Why are we doing an agreement like this? Why are we bringing this proposal to you? And there's one thing that I think is really key to remember is there is a point of unanimous agreement about Trade Point Atlantic, and that is that we all want this infrastructure, this public infrastructure in the ground, because we all want this employment and we want these jobs to impact our community. That's never been an issue. The issue is how do we get there? And if you look at the why from 2012, when I joined the county in 2013, and one of the first things I was doing in your district, Councilman Crandall, was dealing with affected steelworker families from the RG closure. And we extended that service work for folks who were still trying to bounce back for years beyond what our grants, our federal grants allowed. And those 2,000 displaced workers, if you fast forward to today, we're up to over 3,000, 3,500 people working down at the point. We still have a long way to go to get to where we're going, and that's the big why of why we're doing this agreement. Now, why are we doing a different version than the TIF? So you'll remember Trade Point Atlantic brought a TIF proposal to us over a year ago. We deliberated. They brought a revised TIF agreement to us back in the spring. And the short story of why we're not doing a TIF is we have a creative and a better solution for Baltimore County and, frankly, for Trade Point Atlantic and their tenants and our communities. You'll see that this agreement is less costly by half. We're bringing a $78 million agreement compared to the $150 million TIF. It is actually less complex than what a TIF instrument is. There's really three primary pieces to this. And it's something that the market understands. And by that I mean all the deals we're chasing right now with potential tenants and employers, big ones, that want to come to that peninsula if developable land is available to them. And it's actually less risky to the county. You'll see in the way we're going to fund the roads, the risk is actually moved over to our colleagues at Trade Point Atlantic on where the money comes from to pay for those roads, as opposed to Baltimore County property taxpayers. And you'll see that we're using funds to do Metropolitan District type of projects out of Metropolitan District funding. And importantly, you'll see that we're not taking $150 million into the bond market when we're so concerned with where our bond rating is and how our debt is interpreted. So those are the big whys of why we're bringing this deal. And then the big question about, well, why bother doing anything at all, is there's $1 billion of private investment that's already gone into the ground out there. We're bringing $20 million from the feds in our Tiger grant that we spoke about. But the private side needs assurances that we have a public partner here to help get the kind of development that we want. So today there's 4 million square feet of development down there. There's still 10 million to go. That doesn't necessarily have to come if there's not roads, water, and sewer. 3,500 jobs, there's still 4 times that growth in jobs. That doesn't necessarily have to come down there if the infrastructure's not down there. And with the public infrastructure, we can get the key development we want. Without a public partnership, we may end up with a development that we do not want from a Baltimore County perspective. That means if we're not doing big development down there, vertical development, where hundreds of millions of dollars comes in, and then that tax revenue comes to the county. If that doesn't happen, if we pave it, and we do a lot more RORO activity, those tax receipts don't come in, and so too do the jobs that we've really been working on for 5 years now. So that's the why. Here's the what, and it really is 3 simple parts. One is water, sewer, one is roads, and one is public safety. And we've worked with a lot of people from the the developers and their consultants, to our own, to our budget and finance and our law and our public works and DEPS and just about everybody in the administration. And we've designed something that may be creative and unseen anywhere else in the country, frankly, on how to get what we all want here. $44 million that's going to take care of the water and sewer. You're used to seeing us do these kinds of projects through Public Works. You're used to seeing us put these contracts out, build to our high county standards, and us own and maintain water and sewer. That's what we're doing in this case. So you'll see those contracts come through Public Works as law is working those out. On the roads, and that money is coming out of our Metropolitan District Fund, okay, which is what's appropriate for that kind of infrastructure. And then on the roads, and this is really the more creative part, we have an enterprise zone down there that has really helping to bring in a lot of the development, bring in a lot of the early Amazon, Under Armour, and all the employers that are down there now. The enterprise zone leaves a credit out there so that as the property value goes up, we don't collect it all. We will collect it all in a few years as that program matures. But while that's happening, the state pays us back 50 cents on every dollar we don't collect, which is great. It helps fuel this program. So if we were, take an example of the Amazon building, $200 million going up and the property value going up, and we don't take the new increment. We just collect the taxes we've been collecting. State pays us back 50 cents on the dollar of what we didn't collect. That's real money. We're going to use that money that the state is providing us to pay for these roads. Right? So we're going to take 75% of what the state throws to the county, and we'll put it in a fund to pay for these $34 million worth of roads, which basically unlocks the very northern and the southern part of the peninsula, which is where we're at a moment. Do we bring utilities there and then bring employers there, or do we not? So that is a very forward-looking way of doing it. It's a creative way of also keeping the current property taxpayers of the county out of that equation to pay for these roads. Now, who is paying for those roads? Well, Trade Point Atlantic is going to pay for those roads. And it moves the risk to them in this scenario. If the state doesn't pay back the 50 cents on the dollar, and we've been through this with the schools, if that doesn't come for some reason, the county is not on the hook. Trade Point Atlantic is on the hook if that reimbursement's not available. That's a good deal for Baltimore County. It gets us what we want, but it moves the risk to Trade Point and the state, frankly, to fulfill their obligation, which we expect them to do. So, and these are all reimbursables, right? So that work has to be done, and then those bills presented. Same way we do other infrastructure projects. And then we'll take ownership, and we'll maintain these public works. The last part is a key part, is the public safety. So we have a fire station down there now. With the development that's coming and the number of people and activities that are coming, it requires a significant upgrade to public safety. You'll see that in the report that our analysts did about just what those costs look like. So this means an entirely new fire station with a new police substation. Eventually, we're going to put a new fire training facility there, but it's really unrelated to the deal. So what we asked Trade Point to do in order to strike this agreement was we wanted another 5 acres of their land so that we could site this new facility. Because obviously we can't stop servicing from a public safety standpoint. We can't build on the same property we have. We need new property. So part of what you'll see in there is 5 acres that are developable, that are suitable for our public safety teams that meet their needs to build these facilities. That's a good deal for Baltimore County and Trade Point Atlantic and their tenants. So you'll see that work coming through as well. So those are the principal 3 pieces of this deal. And now how have we gotten here? I think you might have noticed that we've been rather slow in our due diligence here. We've had 3 county executive administrations working on this deal. Many of us have seen it through from beginning to this moment. But it's been exhaustive, and I think it's been appropriate. This is the largest public private investment the county's done. It should be done with real deliberation. It should be done with several outside players. And there's been many economic analyses done on this property. Sage Policy did one several years ago. MuniCap did one for the TIF application that you'll see in the TIF documents. And then we hired RKG to do our own, which is typical of the county to do our own. And as you look through that study, you'll see a couple of significant things. One is RKG takes a very conservative approach. Not that our friends at Trade Point Atlantic don't take a conservative approach, but we wanted to see, well, what if growth and property values don't escalate at the same rate that they're saying? What if things are a little bit more modest? Or maybe there's a recession in there. Let's account for that. So RKG did that. And that brings tax returns and jobs down, right? I would say it's overly conservative, but that's the way to do it. And they showed the cost and investment, and you'll see in there a table that really breaks it down cleanly. It's a significant report, but there's one table that shows you the bottom line. And the bottom line is that over the next several decades, after we put our investment in here, the county's going to see $55 to $64 million to the good, positive economic return, right? That's significant because that's taking out all the work that's already been done down there. There's already over $500 million worth of new assessable base out there. We took that out. We didn't let them account for things that have already happened because we felt that wasn't fair. Let's look at just the deal going forward. So with that $517 million on top, there's a tremendous upside, and that's the conclusion of our analyst. So that's the how. You'll see the contracts coming through, and it'll be principally in those vehicles. I think the last thing I'd like to say before taking questions is, I've been really honored to work on this project. There's been many projects at Trade Point Atlantic. You really have to recognize it's a once-in-a-generation development. It's quite a turnaround from where we were just 6 years ago. There's so many partners pulling in the same direction, and I'm really confident that what we've struck here is a very solid deal for Baltimore County, and it's essential for getting the maximum development and the maximum impact we want for the county and our citizens.
Questions or comments?
Sure, Mr.
Councilman
Chair.
Crandall?
Mr. Anderson, thanks for your work on this and the administration's work on this. This has been a long process, and I know that there were some difficult negotiations to get this to a point where you could bring it before the council. And I do want to say that one of those affected families when the steel mill closed was my own. And my father was at the office across from East Point Mall in Colgate, trying to find out what the next step was. So we've felt that pain along with many other families in our district. There's a couple of questions and just some things of clarification that I want to get to some certainty and to have this on record. And I'm glad that Mr. Dorsey and our law office and Mr. Field and Ms. Dubin are here. So I want to make sure, is Trade Point Atlantic paying their full freight of property taxes, including Metropolitan District fees, from day one? Are they getting a property tax break on this?
So, we have an enterprise zone program that's been in place for several years, right? That does abate property tax for new development. So I'll start there.
Right.
The deal that we're laying on top of this doesn't change that. We still get our property tax from them. They get a benefit from that program.
Right.
But this does not change property tax
The
obligation.
full assessed value.
Exactly.
Okay, and paying Metropolitan District fees?
Correct.
Just like everyone else?
Correct.
Okay. The other question, and something that the auditor has brought up, our good county auditor, and it may have just been semantics in how this was originally presented, but I want to get confirmed that the $44 million coming out of the Metropolitan District fee, that is paid back over time, over that 40-year period. It's not, in other words, it's a loan, it's not a gift.
Well, I think the semantics are important here. I see Mike is reaching for his.
Well, just to be clear, what you're talking about is the assessments that
Right.
typically happen after a development like this. So I would point out to the council that the agreement provides that the agreement will be construed under and governed by and enforced in accordance with the laws of the state of Maryland. And you all know that the Metropolitan District Act is actually a law of the state of Maryland. And so that stuff is all incorporated here. For good measure, we've double-checked that they agree that those assessments will occur, but the requirement there is contained in that cross-reference to the laws of the state of Maryland. So what you know of as Article 20, Titles 1 through 4 of the county code are in fact state law. And that's the Metropolitan District Act, and that's where it's covered.
Okay, thank you. Again, thank you for your work on this. It's a big deal, and it's a lot for the council to consider. I would just say that for an area of Baltimore County that feels somewhat neglected, and that years and years of watching other places around the county receive investments, as long as we work out the devil in the details, I think it's about time. So thank you again for your work.
Thanks, Councilman.
I'm going to move along with Councilwoman Bevins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also would like to thank you, Mr. Anderson, and all the members of Trade Point Atlantic, especially Mr. Tamarchio. I know that there's been a lot of energy and work and a lot of time spent with the County Council as a whole in making sure that we understand every step of this process. I am a 48-year resident of Dundalk. My family's still there, my grandchildren. So what happens in this area is very important to me, and I want to make sure that it's successful for sure. So my question to you is, I appreciate the 5 acres of donated land for the fire station and police substation, but do we as a county at this time have $18 million to build that station, and will that take precedence over another project that maybe was in the works over the last couple years of a jurisdiction that had been working towards receiving a new station?
Well, that's an important question, and we've been talking about this internally on, we know we have a need here. We have needs in other areas.
Sure.
Part of the reason that you saw the Metropolitan District fees escalate in previous council business is to accommodate for increasing costs on big public works, metro fee type of works, so that we are not choosing one project over another, but rather we're building in enough revenue to do the work that's necessary. So this project does not bump other projects. It becomes a part of our suite of Metropolitan District projects that need funding.
And I understand that, but I'm just curious about, I think the cost is around $18 million. And Mr. Dorsey, you can comment at any time if you feel the need to.
Yeah.
Do we have $18 million currently in the budget to
it
construct the new fire station?
Yeah, it would be in terms of looking at including it into the prospect of additional funds we would need for the capital budget. It's included in the capital budget. In terms of the way we looked at that particular item, to the extent that even without this deal, there were certain things that the county was going to have to do just based on our public safety responsibilities. We were going to need to add a certain number of staff in terms of police and fire, update our equipment, things that we took out of service when the steel plant closed down. Now that you have people there, we were going to have to do that anyway. And what Will's pointed out, in terms of our facilities down there, were inadequate to meet what going to be future needs. So to the extent that this project is coming along, we are going to meet generally some overall needs of that area of the county, and in terms of the training academy, that's a need countywide. With this deal, we're wrapping it all together, and we're looking at it in its totality, and thought that it made sense to do it because we were going to be responsible for doing it anyway, because we couldn't say, well, they have all of those new construction, new businesses, and we weren't going to respond to a call for service. So we had to prepare ourselves anyway.
Okay, thank you, sir.
want me to go? I had, you want to go now, Councilman Quirk, or you want to?
Either way.
I guess had a question for Mr. Field. I heard what you said, and I guess just for me, is this a loan for the $44 million, yes or no?
Well, I mean,
Do they always,
It-
do
it
they,
should-
do they
it-
pay us back, yes or no?
yes, generally
not
speaking.
in income, I mean,
right,
do they
it's-
pay us back the $44 million? Yes or no?
In terms of, part of it will be through the additional assessments. Public Works hasn't had the opportunity to do the front foot assessments that is going to go with the property for the new development. That's the part that Mr. Fields is referring to in terms of the state law. So we have those obligations. There will be that charge. It's not reflected in the numbers that you see there, but it is charges that we will have to, assess and provide and collect on a regular tax bill. It may not be the full $44 million worth. That is something that I don't know in terms of Public Works, as I said, hasn't done that calculation. To the extent there is a difference that is not met through those fees, what we were looking at is overall, what was the county paying out and what were we getting back? So it's not in terms of a straight loan, but rather a case that we recognize when all is said and done, the county was going to be $55.7 million to the good. And so that's how we looked at it, not in terms of the fine tuning of, well, how much of it was loan, how much of it was, fully covered. At the end, all of it was being covered by the fact that we have a net improvement, net benefit of $55.7 million.
So I guess I noticed that the RKG study did not reflect the payback of the $44 million in water and sewer support. So how does this income stream to the Metro District Fund change the results of the RKG analysis in terms of when the county will attain a positive cash flow balance?
Well, to the extent that, as I said, it's not reflected here, that means that if we were getting in the money for the front foot assessment, it would improve the overall outlook of this project in terms of there would be the additional amount, whatever that assessment amount is. Now, as I said, I don't know what that calculation is. RKG did not include it in their assessment, but it would be an additional assessment that's not reflected here. That just makes the deal even better, the fact that it's not reflected here.
Councilman Quirk?
I know we all have lots of questions. Mr. Field, can you confirm, despite language being absent from the contract, payback is legally required and would be collected by the county, or can you not confirm that?
That's what I meant by the cross-reference to state law. In other words, what the auditor was referring to was a couple of different sections in the Metropolitan District Act when she was asking the questions. And so the agreement talks about being governed by and construed under the state law, and that would include the Metropolitan District Act, which is state law.
And Mr. Dorsey, you talked about the $18 million. That is coming for the capital budget.
Correct.
And I know the Lake County executive, Kevin Cabinets, had committed to a new Lansdowne fire station very publicly. Is that going to happen before this fire station at Dundalk?
I'm not sure where that falls in the schedule. I'd have to look and check on that.
Well, are we committed to having this fire station built within a certain time period by contract?
I don't think we set out a specific date on there in terms of the time.
So
we were going to move expeditiously to make sure because of a public safety issue of making sure we were outfitted, but we had not looked at setting a timetable for when it was going to start and how long it was going to take to finish.
Well,
we know that we were going to move on getting a contractor who was has special experience working with building fire stations, and so that was the next step, was in terms of looking at design and for the station and knowing clearer when we started that process. the timetable, but we hadn't set a firm date.
So the $18 million that's in question is part of the six-year capital plan?
It will be part of that 6-year capital plan.
Is there a way we can see the specific details of the six-year capital plan so I can kind of look at the order of the fire stations, just so I can be more clear?
Yes, we can look at that in terms of, in terms of where it is, along the way, in terms of, you said the Lansdowne?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was something
yeah.
committed to very publicly by the Lake County executive, so I just
Yeah,
wanted to make sure that's still
Yeah,
in the process.
Yeah, I'd have to double check to see where that is in terms of the process.
And then a question for Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson, can you talk to us about the sort of a break-even analysis? You mentioned this, $55 million to the good, so to speak. I know that two different studies have two different dates associated with that, when this actually becomes a positive benefit overall to the county. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. The estimate of 12 to 14 years break even does not account for the piece Mr. Dorsey was just talking about the assessment coming in on top of that, so that would accelerate it. And the two different scenarios that are on Table 5 are, and the two different timeframes are based on the aggressiveness of the assumptions. How quickly will development happen? How well will values appreciate, and therefore taxes come in? So you get a time frame difference right there of 12 to 15 years. Now, there was also estimates from the MuniCap study, which was based on the TIF application, so that when we moved away from that deal, you had those estimates baked in there that are frankly a different deal than what we're bringing forward to you. So there's been a couple of different break-even year analyses done here because the deal has shifted.
So, bottom line, from a taxpayer standpoint, just to kind of put it in simplistic kind of terms, taxpayers ultimately do benefit from TradePoint, but the actual positive cash flow benefit, we probably won't see that until, very optimistically, say 2031, very kind of maybe 2034, 2035?
Yeah, from our analysts' look at it, and they're very competent economic analysts, Russ and Sarah, and they're very conservative basis. They're saying 12 years. From the numbers I'm seeing already coming in from real tenants, real assessments, I think it's going to be shorter, much shorter than that. But we couldn't base a deal on something that was not very, very conservative. So if you look at 3,500 jobs down there and think that we're on our way to 17,000, and you think about the revenue that that's going to bring to the county when our neighbors are down there paying property tax and paying income tax, and that's flowing in, it has real significance across the county. And I'll give you just an example with Amazon. So with Amazon, we're still in early days in hiring at Amazon, but my workforce development team has had 12 recruitment sessions with Amazon across the county in every one of your districts. And we've already placed 558 people hired in jobs. Now that's 2/3 of the Baltimore County citizens that we took through this process. So even in early days, we are seeing a great benefit to real people across this county. And the scenarios presented in this analysis are conservative, but they're backed up by what we're seeing already in our development, and it's frankly why we want more employers down there and why we need this infrastructure, so that it moves away from a moon landing type of ground to ground that has water, sewer, and roads, so that we can actually market it and get real leases and real jobs down there.
Yeah, another question, Mr. Anderson, is just on the multiplier effect. I'm grateful for new jobs. Warehouse jobs are different from, say, Bethlehem Steel jobs. It ultimately comes down to a multiplier effect. And so if TradePoint can also consider other jobs there, not just warehouse, but also jobs that have a much greater multiplier effect, that would make the break-even analysis much, much quicker, where everybody could benefit. So is there any consideration from TradePoint to look outside just warehouse jobs and bring in jobs that have a much higher multiplier effect?
Yeah, and I'm going to let the TradePoint folks respond to that directly, but I know that's a piece we've been planning for since before there was a TradePoint Atlantic. Frankly, when we did the Common Ground study that Mr. Venetools was a part of, and so many other people, about what's the highest and best use of that peninsula, manufacturing, advanced technology is a piece of it, and we're seeing interest there. We would like to see some great manufacturers come down there. And part of this investment leaves those doors open, frankly. But to your point about multiplier effects, there's already $1 billion of construction economic impact coming along with this work as well. So there is tremendous impact, and I think that's why you see a lot of the community in this room waiting to speak. It's because it means real jobs across the board, not just on the ongoing, but on the construction phase and our supply chain downstream. It's going to have a huge ripple effect, which I'm sure you'll hear from our colleagues.
Councilman Marks?
Glad Councilman Quirk brought up the issue of the multiplier effect, because you have the direct jobs, you have the indirect jobs, you have the induced jobs as wages circulate throughout the economy. Talk to us a little bit about Amazon and Under Armour. I know we have approved some conditional loans for Amazon.
Right.
Talk to us about the direct impact of those two companies.
Sure. Well, those were a good example because those conditional loans helped bring them here, and then they're also benefiting from the enterprise zone that we had laid on over top. So there's two different economic development initiatives that helped secure those two big leases. And Under Armour was going to Tennessee. They were going to build another facility in Tennessee before TradePoint Atlantic, the State Department of Commerce, and our shop got involved and put a best deal forward. Now, the Under Armour development and the hiring and the opening has gone slower than the rocket pace we thought we were going to be, but it's still, our development team inside PAI did a great job of help getting that building up. And what we're going to see is between them and Amazon is a couple thousand jobs that are real, and Amazon is ahead of their pace on hiring. And they've been very willing to work with us to make sure that our residents that are surrounding the area and have been waiting for jobs to come back for 5 to 8 years have a shot at those jobs, and it's actually happening. And we're partnering inside Paula Miller's libraries and getting out into the community and really connecting people to these jobs, and they're real. And you're going to see, I'm confident that you're going to see when we get this deal done that's in front of us today, that folks that are sniffing around and want to do a big deal at TradePoint, if they think they've got roads, water, and sewer, they're going to sign on the dotted line. I'm confident that some of these deals that are in the pipeline and on the edge, your votes are going to push those deals over the top, and you'll hear brand names that you know, not just Under Armour and Amazon coming to the point.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Anderson, I ask you a hard question. Obviously in the news with General Motors and what happened at White Marsh,
Yep.
Significant investment from the state, significant investment from the county. GM suddenly decides to close shop. Seems like the taxpayers and the citizens are left on the hook. What type of assurances do we have to make sure that never happens at TradePoint?
So I'm not representing GM here, Mr. Councilman. You know, that when the announcement came down from GM nationally about the 5 facilities that were closing, and ours was the smaller one, but its real impact to those 300 people and their families, we went back through every deal. Many of you might have had your hands on some of those deals that helped bring Allison up to White Marsh, and we did several investments. So did the state, so did BG&E. And then, of course, the federal government bailed out GM in the crisis. We went back and made sure that they had met all of their obligations to Baltimore County. Every loan, every workforce training allowance we had given them and grants had been fulfilled, and they did. They did. So if we went back and looked at, was the GM deal a good deal at Baltimore County? I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was a good deal. We have a very highly trained, highly skilled workforce at that GM plant. It's well known that it's one of the best plants in the country, and our communities and our families have benefited by those deals we struck to put in substations and help them build their second facility. Those were good deals. Now, going forward, we don't want to see it cut off just because it was a good deal for 20 years. In that case, the assurances, they didn't walk away from anything. They're still, our county executive, Ashevsky, is chasing it down right now with GM to keep that plant open. While some of the factors that are driving it are international, just like when we lost steel, those were international factors that we couldn't overcome locally. But we're making those efforts. I'll tell you the upside with GM is we've had 24, Todd Dolman on our economic development team's had 24 companies chomping at the bit to recruit from the GM workers. That skill set is that well known and that transferable across different manufacturing facilities. And should we get to the point where we cannot keep that plant or we could not get another product in that plant, we're very confident that we can help connect those workers to other employers in the area and keep them right here in Baltimore County, even if it's not a GM product that they're building.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I'm still kind of new at this, so pardon me if this is a naive question. Can you discuss how we're engaging labor and our commitment to labor as it relates to this project?
So when you say how we're dealing with labor, I'll speak from the county's perspective. We have, and you'll read in the agreements, commitments about how this work will be done, just like the way we do every time we do a capital project, an infrastructure project. You should think of it that way, the same way we do every road and water project, including women and minority obligations of 15% for MBE and WBE. The company also has their own labor agreement, a public labor agreement that includes relationships with the unions that I think you might hear from today. So it may look like it's complex, but as we take the infrastructure deal through, it's the same way we do it in all of our other infrastructure builds.
And we'll hear more about that today, you think?
I think so. I think you got a lot of folks that want to talk about it
Good.
following me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just ask, yes, one additional. So this is a contract, as we know, and it's a pretty significant contract. So some of the members were asking, is this a all or nothing, take it or leave it, or is there room for some minor changes?
Well, the agreement that you have before you, the MOU, lays out the principal pieces that we've negotiated, that we wanted. The actual construction contracts that our law office is working on with Trade Point's representatives, those are still in process. But they're based on what goes into this agreement that you have before you. So I'm not sure if that answers the question about where we are in the process of buttoning these things up.
Well, let me be a little more specific. Let me drill down. One of the things you mentioned was 15% MBE, WBE participation.
As a minimum.
Excuse me?
As a minimum.
As a minimum, right. And talking with the Trade Point Atlantic folks, they feel very confident that they're going to exceed that. So the question then becomes, what is the harm in moving the contract up to, say, 20 or 25%?
I think you'll see that in the agreement when you get a chance to look through the fine print in there. We have the 15 minimum, but we also have a 25% target in there as well.
Right, but I mean...
If I can answer that one, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, because I mean, target don't mean much to me, to be quite frank.
What we put in there was that they had to meet a minimum of 15%, but make good faith efforts to get 25% of MBE, WBE.
Okay. All right. Councilman Quirk.
Well, I think one of the challenges of Trade Point is to really help citizens and taxpayers really understand that any projected, say, positive cash flow out of this, or any projected taxes, or any projected negotiations, all of this is predicated on actual new investment actually happening at Trade Point. And so if no new investment happened at Trade Point, then we have zero additional revenues coming in. and trying to really communicate that and make sure taxpayers and citizens really understand that, I think is important. I also think it's really important to make sure that taxpayers really understand this deal, because I can see a headline in the newspaper that's really an incorrect headline, because the details, I think, can easily get lost from this type of program. So, I'm not sure what the most effective way to communicate what this is and what this really isn't, where an average citizen out there can really understand, because it's quite complex, and I think that's something we have to really make sure people understand.
I agree. I think there's two paths to that. One is we've been doing maybe rather boring but serious due diligence here in the county. We haven't been messaging, right? We've been making sure we're striking the best deal for the county. So going forward, I think what people understand is when they see impact in their communities. And that's why this early work with Amazon got me excited that I'm seeing impact in communities all around this county. It's that big of a project. So when you see your neighbors having a personal impact, you'll see that. On the other side, the second half of it is the messaging from Trade Point Atlantic. And I think part of what you've seen out of this group that Revitalize Sparrows Point is that group. It is the message coming from our communities and our businesses and organized labor and community-based groups, and I think they're taking the message about why this is important financially to Baltimore County into their communities.
If I could follow up on that too, is can you tell us, and I know we got plenty of speakers that will tell us this as well, but could you reiterate to the council really the question of the why? Like, why public participation? With public participation, we have a faster build-out, we have more revenues, we have more jobs.
Yep.
Let's talk about also without public participation, compare and contrast the difference and the why. Why should the average citizen in Baltimore County want to do this?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, what if we don't do it? If we don't do it, the development plans will not bring the tax return or the jobs return that we want to see in this county. It just won't happen. If it's too expensive to do development because the county's not going to participate, we will see a large amount of that peninsula turn into moving automobiles on and off of port operations. That does not provide new taxes to the order that you see in the report, and it certainly doesn't provide high-paying or family-supporting wage jobs to the extent that we're looking to see. So it's as simple as that. The outcome that we want to see in this county requires an investment of public infrastructure. These will be our roads, our water, our sewer at the end of the day. And it just makes sense for us to make this investment and get these multiplier returns for generation.
So, I mean, if no public participation, probably the lowest hanging fruit for Trade Point to do would be a giant parking lot, basically to store maybe trains, maybe to park cars, but a lot less jobs, a lot less construction, a lot less investment. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I'll let the company speak to that, but if you go back to the original TIF application, you'll see that as well. What alternative development might happen if we can't get roads and water down to the southern part of the peninsula? You can pave it, and you don't need roads and water and sewer. So, but it's a great question to bring to the company.
And
Mr. Chair, if I may.
You want to be the last one, right?
Well, I don't have quite. I just have a
go
comment.
Ahead.
So I thought maybe I'd make the comment before we got to speakers.
Okay, I have one more question. Go ahead. I thought you wanted to be last.
I will allow it.
Thank you. You're kind. You're very kind.
I don't know why you're deferring to me. You're the chairman.
Does the, when I look at agreements like this, and there's no doubt about it, I think all the projections were made in good faith, and people did a good job. But I guess my question is, like, when we think about the current project labor agreement and that is made already in the area with the building trades unions, and how do we know, do we have anything that will tell us at the end of the day, something that can measure how many Baltimore County contractors or how many Baltimore County residents will get jobs as a result of these, as a result of what we're doing here today?
Do we have instruments to measure that? I mean, from the residents getting jobs?
Yes.
That's data that we tend to be able to get our hands on.
Mm-hmm.
The projections that you'll see in here were 43%, I think, of the jobs would go to Baltimore County residents. I think it's already higher than that, but that's to keep it conservative. The reporting on contracts of who gets contracts, that's for the company to respond to.
Okay. Councilman Quirk?
I think the chairman does bring up a really good point, though, because obviously the greater participation from Baltimore County residents, the better it is for the overall bottom line. If most of these employees are located outside the Baltimore County, the worse the numbers become fairly quickly. So I do think it's a very good point.
Councilman Crandall?
Sure. I just wanted to state this before we get to speakers. I understand there's a significant amount of speakers. I just want to acknowledge the constituents of the 7th District that are here, the workers that are here. There's a lot of community leaders here. No matter where you are on this issue, I just appreciate you making the trip up to Towson today from the 7th District. I think this is the largest contingent from the 7th District we've had in council chambers since we were dealing with the rat issue. So I do appreciate you coming up. And as a nod to you all, because you understand the district, I want to take Councilman Quirk to task on something. When you mentioned that the fire station that's proposed would be built in Dundalk. No, it would be built in Sparrows Point. Sparrows Point is not Dundalk. Edgemere is not Dundalk. Essex is not Dundalk. So there's a lot of neighborhoods in the 7th District.
So just while you bring it up, Councilman Crandall, I could not help but notice the political action volunteer shirts are the same color as the rat shirts. Were they not green?
Close enough. Close enough.
Okay, any additional questions or comments? Mr. Anderson, I take it you can hang around, and if we have additional questions, we can reach out to you.
Absolutely.
Right
Thank
now,
you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, I thank you, sir. Right now, we're going to move right along and get some speakers in here. And we'll start with Mr. Mark Baskerville. Our favorite friend from Harford County.
Hello. Hope y'all are doing well. Nice to meet you, Izzy.
Thank you, Mark.
So I'm all in favor of TradePoint doing this development. I'm very skeptical of the necessity or benefit of taxpayer assistance. And also, I mean, the big question is, why can't TradePoint pay their own way? Because if we use the taxpayer assistance for this, I mean, we're potentially throwing that money away if TradePoint could just pay their own way anyway. And we're throwing away an even bigger benefit by just letting them develop the money with their own funding or private funding. Also, you know, why isn't there a bigger profit sharing back with the county based on the massive benefit that they're getting from the taxpayer to renovate their own property? I don't believe most other property owners have the ability to go out there, ask taxpayers to pay them to rehab their house or update their store. So even though these things do create jobs and also improve the tax base as well. So it seems like a potentially massively unnecessary cost that we're taking a big risk on, which may have other economic problems as well. If we're putting higher pressure on the county for either higher water bills or taxes, then that's going to potentially damage economic growth in small businesses around the county or cause capital flight or population flight if tax increases come to pass as a result of revenues being skimmed away to be given to a single private entity. So I'll finish because I'm out of time. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Baskerville. Next, Aaron Tamarkio. Oh, duh.
It's okay. I've lived with that my whole life. Good. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the council and Mr. Chairman. My name is Aaron Tamarkio. I'm the Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs for Trade Point Atlantic. We are the owners, managers, and developers of the 3,200-acre former steel mill at Sparrows Point. I think a lot of what I was going to say was covered extremely well by Mr. Anderson as far as the details of the agreement. It is something we've been working very closely with Baltimore County on, and in fact, with the community and having conversations about the need for the infrastructure. This is about getting the right infrastructure in the right place at the right time. And this is not a speculative deal. This is a deal that's proven. When we came to purchase the property in 2014, we came with a plan to utilize the mill's assets, the inherent deep water port, the access to rail, the access to highway, to create an international global logistics hub that would attract a multitude of different tenants. And in doing so, we would clean up a century's worth of pollution that was created by the steel mill before there was the days of the EPA or the MDE. And we've been privately funding that cleanup, and we've been on track. So a lot of what we've been talking about, some of the benefits that I believe the community and I know the labor groups here today have been seeing have been a result of that plan coming to fruition. We've landed a number of new tenants, of FedEx, Under Armour, Amazon, just to name a few. And to address a question that was earlier pointed out about the direct impact to some of those tenants has to the county, I can tell you based on real numbers, not the report numbers, these are numbers that came in just a couple of weeks ago, Amazon and FedEx alone represent, Amazon and Under Armour alone represent 2 million square feet. They also contribute real dollars, $5 million a year to the county's economy. And I'll open myself up to any questions that you might have.
Councilman Marks?
Thank you very much. Aaron, I know you have done an awful lot of engagement with the community. Tell me the number of meetings you've held with stakeholders in southeastern Baltimore County.
Over the last 18 months, about 40 community association meetings. We also hold open houses twice a year, a fall and a spring open house that we invite the entire community around. And we have a mailing list of over 5,000 people who are interested in what's going on in our project. And we have a relatively healthy attendance at our open houses. And we actually have our entire development team on hand, from the environmental folks to the developers and the folks who are on our rail and our port, to answer any questions that the community might have. And in fact, if I could take a moment, I'd like to have some of the members of our revitalized Sparrows Point stand up and just show you some of the work that's been going on over the last several months and years, and then the labor participation and folks supporting the project. So, this is a midday weekday, and I really think everybody's coming out to support this.
Yeah, our previous speaker seems to never think that the government has a role in anything. Every wave of national economic growth has been preceded by some investment in infrastructure. The Transcontinental Railroad, the interstate highway system, the age of aviation. I mean, there is a role for government in spurring these things along, and some people just don't get that. And I thank you for the work you've done, the philosophy with which you've taken this to the communities. It's very impressive.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I can add on to, I'm sorry.
Councilman Quirk?
The internet as well, Councilman Marks?
invented by certain people.
And then, and Aaron, it's great to see you. I do want to commend you and the Trade Point team. You know, I found that you guys have been very accessible, very transparent, very open to meeting, answering lots of questions, working with the administration team exhaustively, amending the plan that originally was a TIF and showing a lot of flexibility to change that almost 180 degrees opposite. My question is kind of a similar one I asked Will, and that's just trying to boost up the multiplier effect to really make this investment break even much quicker. You know, like construction jobs are great. You know, warehouse jobs are good. I mean, Amazon just increased $10 to $15 an hour, so that's definitely a significant improvement. But obviously, we all know if it's like research and development jobs or if it's manufacturing jobs, there's lots of jobs out there that have a much greater multiplier effect that can make your investment much more profitable, much quicker, make the county's return much faster. Can you talk a little bit more about the vision of Trade Point? Because I think there's some concern out there from citizens that this whole place is going to be warehouse jobs.
Absolutely. I'm happy to address that question. And I think it's also important to note that, you know, when Bethlehem Steel was in operation, that was one user for 3,200 acres. And what you're going to find with the redevelopment of Sparrows Point, you're going to have multiple users spanning many different industries and many different talent subsets and job opportunities that will span the project. I will say, you know, the big ones that everybody knows because they have a big footprint are the typical distribution, you know, warehouse jobs. And I would say that's also reflective of the 21st century economy where everybody wants things delivered to their door. And I think you're finding a lot of big name brand companies moving in that direction, and I think that we'll benefit from that. But in addition, and I think what the RKG report does not contemplate are the impacts of the rail and the marine. We have an active marine terminal going on, and there's, you know, we all know the economic generator that the Port of Baltimore is. Well, we have a Port of Baltimore expansion occurring in Baltimore County, and those jobs and the companies affiliated with those jobs are going to be connected to that port operation and the rail operation that we have. In addition, the thesis that went into looking at how we utilize this site, basically utilizing the deep water port, the rail, and the highway access, lends itself to a variety of opportunities. And more importantly, that site was used for manufacturing. It's a wonderful platform to bring in your raw materials, to have a place to make or assemble something, and then easy access to get it out to market. We've developed separate businesses in and around our Trade Point. There's Trade Point Atlantic, and then there's a Trade Point development component that helps with the vertical construction of our projects. There's a Trade Point Rail, which operates our short line on-site railroad, and there's Trade Point Marine that operates our marine terminal. By the way we're organized, we are incentivized to bring manufacturing because a manufacturer will utilize our rail, will utilize our port, and will utilize our land. Our business model incentivizes us to go after and attract manufacturers. And in fact, when the governor had the manufacturing incentives bill before the legislature the last session, we lobbied to get into that bill. We wanted to make sure that Trade Point Atlantic had an opportunity to attract those manufacturers and had the incentives there that the state was proposing to do that. And we think that we're off to a pretty decent start. We have a palm oil manufacturer that has acquired 25 acres of our land. They're going to import raw palm oil, refine it on site, and then send it out to on rail, and that's going to require a substantial amount of work. And then we also have a greenhouse. You know, you're growing something. We have a hydroponic, organically fed greenhouse, organic produce that will produce, you know, salads for people to eat. And then we have a lot of other things. And another thing that we're looking at is the partnership with offshore wind. We think that there is a fantastic opportunity in Baltimore County to bring the jobs and the manufacturing associated with the 21st century of offshore wind. And those conversations are real, they're happening, and we're proud to be part of it.
Thank you.
Councilman Crandall?
Mr. Chair, if I may, yeah, I just want to follow on with Councilman Marks's accolades as far as how TradePoint has engaged the community, not only with respect to this agreement, but since you all started. I don't know if Baltimore County has ever seen a company that hosts an open house and has a Q&A session every quarter. I don't know if we've seen that, and I think that's one of the reasons that you've been able to build trust with the Revitalize Sparrows Point Coalition and all that. And I'm sitting on 160 emails in support of the agreement because of that engagement. And there are some folks here in the room that I think would appreciate if I ask this question of you, though, is and something that we've discussed in our few years of working together, that there's an impact to the community with all this. So the steel mill goes dormant, and it went from 30,000 employees to nothing, and so now we're seeing an uptick in traffic. So there will, as your port operation grows, your DC operations grow, there will be a traffic impact in the area, which we've always had to deal with in our neck of the woods. But can you talk a little bit about how Port to Point, the work group, has started to address these concerns and some of the issues that TradePoint's helping to may need the state's help and things like that?
Yes, we've been working with the Baltimore Metropolitan Council on how we streamline the connectivity from the Port of Baltimore to TradePoint Atlantic and the infrastructure, the routes, the highway routes in between the two, and kind of the work that would need to be done to hopefully reduce and lower the tolls that of one of the routes that we would like to see most commonly used, but also getting the other infrastructure pieces in place. In fact, we have a plan that we've been working on to do some infrastructure improvements in and around Bethlehem Boulevard and North Point Boulevard to enhance the intersection and intersections there. And I think this roadway project as well that we're talking about, these roads are going to help enhance the roads internally, but also externally on the site, that the roads that feed into the site. And for one, I came down to the site in 2014, and it was just me and 4 other people. I had a Verizon guy refusing to come to the site, saying it was contaminated and wouldn't help us with our phone lines. And then we had a demolition crew working on the demo. And at night, it would go dark. If you come down there tonight at 6:30, you can see headlights and taillights, and quite a stream of them. But we also recognize, and that's a good thing, because that means there's jobs, it means that the site is coming back to life. But we also recognize there's a responsibility to make sure that the right infrastructure is in place so that those impacts are mitigated. And we value our partnership with the community, and we will continue to work with them because we're long-term tenants. We are a long-term owner of this property, and we have a long-term commitment to the communities in and around where we operate.
Thank you, and I think there's plenty of evidence of that commitment to the community. We don't have to list them out today, but I've certainly been aware of the philanthropic and charitable stuff, as well as just helping certain communities work through issues. So
we're very proud of our partnership with our communities, and it means a lot to us.
Okay, thank you.
And Aaron, I apologize on your last name, but I thank you. You've been very responsive, and you've been terrific to work with in terms of answering all of my questions. I just have a couple of more, if you don't mind.
Sure.
One is, in our meetings before, you explained to me again about all the things you have in place in terms of helping minorities and women-owned businesses participate in the growth at TradePoint Atlantic. And you told me that, you guys, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys had every indication or every belief that you would do more than 15% MBE, WBE participation.
Mm-hmm.
Given all of that, are you willing to accept a minimum of 20%?
I think we'll hit that, yes, sir.
Are you willing to codify it in the contract?
Yes, we will do that.
Okay, that's great. That's the first thing. The second thing is, does Trade Point Atlantic have in place a wage enforcement function that ensures that construction workers and public infrastructure portion of the project, that those folks are being paid a prevailing wage?
We do. In fact, we've had a prevailing wage plan in place for several years now, outside of the infrastructure that's being discussed today. And I'll keep in mind, this is all privately funded work that's going on, aside from the agreement we're talking about today, where our company, recognizing the history of labor on that peninsula and in that area, honoring that commitment and making sure that the projects we bid out are done at a prevailing wage. And we will continue to honor that commitment. And we've had a fantastic working relationship with labor. We entered into a project labor agreement a couple of years ago that has allowed a partnership to form between a private developer and labor. It's pretty rare. I mean, and I think the partners in labor understand that, and there's a wonderful opportunity. And I think several of the groups here today have had plenty of opportunity to have folks down at our site and build the buildings that are there. And it's wonderful. And this, we will continue with that agreement.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments for Aaron? And just as I let you go, let me just say again that, we appreciate everything you've done. We know that Trade Point Atlantic is in the business of making money. We appreciate that, but we also want to recognize that we appreciate the significant investment you're making in Baltimore County. So we thank you very much.
Thank you for your support. Thank you all.
And next, Aaron, watch this, Ted, then Toll, then Ted, can somebody help me with this? Ventiles? Oh, TV Ted. Oh, okay. Ted, we're certainly always a pleasure to see a former county executive in the House. We thank you.
First of all, I want to congratulate all of you on your re-elections.
Thank you, sir.
Izzy, you particularly, you're entering an august body. You've got some terrific colleagues, and I know you're going to serve with honor and distinction. Also remember, you are my councilman. Okay. Can I give you perhaps a more human and personal observation of this project? I doubt that there's anyone in this room who does not know someone, some relative, some friend, some member of a family that has not been touched by Sparrows Point. In fact, I consider myself a citizen of Sparrows Point. My dad worked there for 17 years. I worked there to work my way through college and get enough money to attend the college. When I ran for county executive, I campaigned there every morning. They had 33,000 people. They came in from 5 different gates, and we were there every morning at 5:30, shaking hands in a different gate every day. When I was county executive, we did a lot to work with Sparrows Point, the company at that time, Bethlehem Steel, which you all are trying to do now with a different company. As a member of the Port Authority, and I was on a Port Authority for 10 years, we worked diligently to make sure that the new group that purchased the point, that 3,300 acres, developed a program for it. In fact, it was Governor O'Malley and Kevin Kamenetz, and together with my support, we set up the original partnership to help create a plan and a program to develop the point. So here's what I would remind all of us here. This is a private partner program. This is a partnership of the private community and the public community. We created one of those with the port. with the Port of America. It was the first major private-public partnership in our state. We did it with the Port and the Port of America, a huge company like Trademark is. Can I exercise former county executive time limit?
Yes, that'll
of
give you
some
another
nature?
5 seconds. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So anyhow, we created that partnership, and that has really created an enormous difference with our port. Our port now, Maryland, I guess it's called, is the largest port on the East Coast. We do an amazing level of work. Trade Point and the redevelopment, the revitalization of Sparrows Point is going to accent that development. In fact, we've already seen the beginnings of it. The port has run out of space. Our major business is roll on, roll off, all these automobiles that come in. We are the #1 point for roll on, roll off in the country. And Trade Point, we're out of space. We didn't know what to do. Trade Point has come in and salvaged the port because they are now able, they have some of the space to continue this roll on, roll off. So this major public-private partnership is really an incredible thing, and you ought to take advantage of it. The second thing I would say, our administration was fortunate enough to create the AAA rating that we now have in the county. We obviously don't want to be an administration or a council that loses that rating. Now, what do these folks look for? They just don't look at budgets and tax revenues. They look at a number of important side elements. They look at your politics to see if you have a poison partisanship or whether you get together reasonably, whether you are reasonable folks and you can talk to each other. They really do look at that. They look at your educational system. Do you have a decent educational system? Do they look at your other institutions, your health institutions, your work labor force institutions? They look at all these things and they look at your infrastructure to make sure you have a strong, supportive infrastructure that can handle the growth that is requirement to maintain that AAA rating. And this project, I think, from my perspective, is perhaps the largest single development project, certainly in our region, perhaps in our state. It will be the largest single development project in your political lives, I believe. I don't think there will be anything larger, maybe, and that would be terrific, that will come along, that you want to fund, that you want to do, that will create the number of jobs that this has a potential of doing. So that will help intensely to maintain that AAA rating, and you want to hold on to that because that means a lot on our tax base and on our tax rate and what we're paying for the bonds and everything else that we have to borrow for. So let me just close with this comment because I know you've got a lot of other folks and you've heard a lot already. It is not easy for us to leave a legacy in our public life. We do a lot of things every day, but sometimes people don't even know about them. And it's constituent service, it's legislation. But this one is a legacy builder. We are revitalizing and bringing back to life one of the great icons of our community. It really is an historic icon. And this council, this administration, is going to bring it back to life. And that is a legacy worth doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Councilman Quirk.
Yeah, County Executive Venetoulis. First of all, again, I want to thank you for all your past work helping the county with our Charter Review Commission, and really I did just a fantastic job with that. And I think every one of your recommendations in your committee passed with flying colors recently, which was great to see.
I wish that would have happened when I was county executive.
And then I do appreciate all your work working together with Trade Point, always working on behalf of the community. So it's a real pleasure to see you. And I just want to thank you so much for everything you do for the county.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And again, I see my friend, Senator-elect Corey McCray, has joined us again. Nice to see you, sir. Thanks for stopping by. You want to say anything? All right, thank you. Next, I'm going to call up, thank you very much, Ted. Thank you. I'm going to call up Sheila Ruth, and let me just ask everyone, we have a lot of people who are in agreement in support of this, and we have a few that are not. So if you would like to save some time, you can, at some point, you don't have to take all the 2 minutes. You can say who you are, that you're in support or against, and that can be it. That way we can sort of keep things moving along, so you don't have to repeat some of the same talking points. Ms. Ruth, it's good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Chair Jones and members of the County Council, my name is Sheila Ruth, and I live in County Council District 1. I'm not here to testify for or against the TradePoint Atlantic contract. Rather, I'm here to ask the Council to provide citizens greater opportunity to engage on important issues like this and to provide greater advance notice of hearings. With $78 million on the line, this is an important decision that weighs the potential for jobs and economic development against other county and service infrastructure needs. Citizens of Baltimore County deserve a chance to weigh in, yet there's been no notice that I've seen from the County Council about this hearing. If it weren't for the Baltimore Sun and the excellent work of reporter Pam Wood, no one would even know that this hearing was taking place today. There was nothing posted about it on the Baltimore County government social media accounts, and the County Council doesn't have its own social media accounts, although maybe it should. There was no mention of it in the county community update newsletters. Most people did not find out about today's hearing until this morning when the Baltimore Sun reported on it, much too late for most people to make arrangements to take off of work and attend. Also, these work sessions need to be held in the evenings when more citizens are able to attend. Further, I'd like to encourage the council members to hold listening sessions in their districts on important issues like this prior to the formal hearing. Such listening sessions would give more citizens the opportunity to share their thoughts and would also give council members a chance to explain their views to the public and to get buy-in on important decisions like this. Greater transparency and greater opportunity for citizen engagement would go a long way toward rebuilding trust in county government. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Ruth. Mr. Rick Benetti. And while Mr. Benetti makes his way up here, let me just say this has been probably the most talked about project we've had in years. For probably over a year at least. We've been talking about it. It's been in the paper, and it's hard to believe that I'm not going to get into a debate, but you know, those dates we gave Pam. Anyway, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Members of the committee, my name is Rick Benetti, and I represent the Baltimore-Washington Laborers District Council. We are part of the Laborers International Union of North America and represent roughly about 1,000 workers in the Baltimore metro area. We're not here today to testify unfavorably on this agreement, nor are we here to support it. But I will say it's apparent to us, the owners of this project, are working diligently to respect the legacy of the former Bethlehem Steel site and the union labor that built the communities which surround it. LIUNA takes them at their word that they are paying prevailing wage to all construction workers on the site's private work through an existing project labor agreement, not just those who are members of a union. We are signatory to that PLA and have had at least a dozen workers on the job there for a few years now. The same goes for lots of other unions here too, who have gotten their fair amount of work out there. Not everybody has gotten a fair amount of work out there, but some of us have. But like I said, it's not perfect, but the TradePoint folks are definitely trying. But what's being discussed here today is publicly funded infrastructure through government grants and subsidies. The fact that construction workers will be paid prevailing wages on that work should be the rule, not the exception for the county. Fortunately, TradePoint has pledged to my union and the other building trades that they will be paying prevailing wage on this public work. Unfortunately, the county did not ask or require them to do so. While prevailing wage is not a panacea for ensuring local Baltimore County workers get paid family-sustaining wages and receive quality employer-funded health care, it's a start. Paying prevailing wage on public infrastructure levels the playing field so that local contractors who do right by their employees can compete against those contractors who are able to low bid their work by not paying livable wages or providing quality health insurance. The county should realize that tools like prevailing wage, local hiring laws, project labor agreements, and apprenticeship standards make sure that government's capital investments have a direct positive impact on the local economy. They also ensure to help that there is less reliance overall on social service safety nets. The council should use this agreement as an opportunity to correct the mistakes of past administrations. If a group of private investors and developers can envision leveraging public investment to create meaningful employment, then the county can too. Even this late in the process, the county could easily build local hiring percentages or goals into the package. It could ask TradePoint to report out on how many construction workers are actually getting paid the Maryland prevailing wage rate. It could ask TradePoint to report out how many contractors winning bids on this infrastructure work are providing their workers health insurance and at what level of coverage, and it could ask them to report out on how many apprentices their contractors are hiring. While, again, we're not here to endorse this agreement yet, I do want to reiterate that we are grateful that the TradePoint project owners are willing to pursue a new model of economic development, one that could benefit thousands of residents instead of just a handful. The county should follow suit and realize there's a better way to do economic development. The county should mandate that these tools are used instead of them relying on private developers to do so when they are using public funds. Thank you. Sorry I went late.
That's okay. Thank you, sir. Yes. I have a question.
This is a question for Mr. Field. Can we stipulate in the contract what Mr. Benetti has said, that TradePoint report out on their activity with organized labor?
It's currently not in the contract. We'd obviously have to go back and renegotiate, right?
Is that something we can have a discussion with TradePoint on? Okay. Thank you. I think reporting out is the best way to demonstrate that we're being fair on this.
Mark McQuay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, I'm going to be very, very quick for you. My name is Mark McQuay. I am an officer with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 37. We represent approximately 1,500 union members, many of which live and work in Baltimore County. Recently, within 4 years ago, Local 37 moved their offices from Baltimore City to the east side of Baltimore County. We built a state-of-the-art apprenticeship facility right outside the gates at Sparrows Point, planning on training for many, many years future journeyman operating engineers to work on those type of jobs. I come here before you today to respectfully request your support for this agreement between Baltimore County and TradePoint Atlantic. The proposed infrastructure work will bring quality, good-paying construction jobs in the area that will benefit everyone in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Mr. Pete Demchuk. Then if I could ask Mr. Francis Taylor, if you're going to speak, come sit right here in his front seat while he's speaking. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Chairman Jones.
Good afternoon.
Council members. My name is Pete Demchuk. I'm the business manager of IBEW, or International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 24. We represent about 1,900 members in the Baltimore metropolitan area. I'm here to support the agreement for TradePoint Atlantic and Baltimore County. I kind of blew my speech that I originally had written for, that I have some facts from just the Amazon project from the contractor that built that job. There's over 250,000 straight time hours on that job. We work to maintain a 1 journeyman to 1 apprentice ratio on that job, so we're training apprentices, future tradesmen that are becoming more short. At August 1st, there was over 35,000 overtime hours worked on that particular job. They contributed $4.2 million to our health and pension funds of the local union. There were 2 additional, there was subcontracted work to 2 union minority business enterprises and 2 additional union contractors. There was purchased over $8 million of materials, all from local suppliers. So it is money coming back into the county. The particular contract is based in Owings Mills, Free State Electric that did that job, and I just ask for your support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Free State Electric is in my district. And the on-deck circle will be John Gonthram. Yes, sir.
Hi, it's very nice to see you all again. You should have a copy of my statement I had sent to each one of you. I'll just read this. My name is Francis Taylor. I'm president of the North Point Peninsula Council. We have represented the community in civic matters since 1971. We are the closest neighbors to the Sparrows Point Peninsula, now being developed by Trade Point Atlantic. Our informed board and members, after presentations and debate, overwhelmingly support this latest public financing proposal between TPA and Baltimore County. This most recently proposed infrastructure financing agreement will signal a strong public-private investment partnership that will foster economic revitalization and environmental benefit in southeast Baltimore County. In addition, the current lack of a modern on-site water and sewer system and safe roadway transportation network justifies the need for this proposal. We look forward to partnering with TPA and Baltimore County and welcoming all of our corporate neighbors, and anxiously anticipate future infrastructure and recreational investments in our community that will result from this renewed prosperity. We ask for your support of this agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. John Gonthram and Mr. Courtney Speed, would you please come up front? Ms. Courtney Speed. Ms. Courtney Speed. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council, my name is John Gonthram. I'm the immediate past president of the Greater Chesapeake Gateway Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here on their behalf speaking in wholehearted support of this investment in the infrastructure improvements to the Trade Point Atlantic property. About 15 years ago, the state and the county supported Maryland Route 43's extension from I-95 over to Eastern Boulevard. This extension was not built to relieve traffic congestion. It was built solely for the purpose of getting economic investment into the Middle River area. At this time, it is projected that there will be over 1,500 residences and 10,000 jobs created as a result of that particular economic investment that occurred under the Ehrlich administration. They saw the benefit of Eastern Baltimore County as an economic generator. And our association, our community, has really benefited by it. Well, that was on approximately 600 acres. Think of what the potential is in Trade Point Atlantic compared to that. It will not only benefit the immediate area and the communities of southeastern Baltimore County, it will benefit the region. We believe that this kind of economic investment is exactly what is necessary in order to generate jobs and the future of this county. And we would urge your support for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gonthram. Ms. Speed and Ms. Amy Mentzer, please come up. And Mentzer, have a seat right there in the corner. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Speed.
Okay. Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Chairman and members of the council. My name is Servant Courtney Speed. I reside in historic community Turner Station, Maryland. There was a time when moving to Sparrows Point or Turner Station meant the promise of opportunity. Henrietta Lacks and her husband David Day sought that promise when they moved to Turner Station in 1941, where David would work at the booming Bethlehem Steel. They would have 3 more children and raise them in the vibrant, thriving, economically secure community of Turner Station. At the Henrietta Lacks Legacy Group, we work every day to bring that promise back to our community to extend the legacy of Mrs. Lacks. We believe that the Trade Point Atlantic's commitment to rebuild Sparrows Point is just that. We know what investment means in Sparrows Point. We've had it once before. It means jobs, growth, and stability. And we now have the chance to bring that and so much more back. The Henrietta Lacks Group enthusiastically support the proposed infrastructure project agreement for the revitalization of Sparrows Point, and we urge all Baltimore County to join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming out, Ms. Speed. Ms. Amy Mentor and Robert Zacharou. Some of you get wrong.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Amy Menzer. I'm Executive Director of Dundalk Renaissance Corporation. As I think you all know, we're a small nonprofit community development corporation. I want to thank you for your support of our work, which has enabled us to attract new residents to Dundalk, support renovations by current homeowners, work with private developers to renovate homes for homeownership, and incubate new businesses in our historic Main Street commercial area. I also want to thank you for your conscientious deliberation on this project. It's massive and awe-inspiring, and it deserves the deliberation. Dundalk's future is bright, and we believe that it is due in no small part to the investments Trade Point Atlantic is making. They have, as others have said, but they continue to demonstrate sort of a long-term commitment to our community. They've done this through the open house meetings that Councilman Crandall referred to, sort of appreciating the legacy of what has happened on that site. And their efforts to communicate regularly with residents about their plans have been truly appreciated. Even more encouraging is that they deliver on their commitments with reliable results, and that's why you see so many community people here excited and feeling confident about what they're proposing to do and that they will actually deliver on what they're saying. We really want to see this project, we want to maximize the opportunities for its future impact for Dundalk, Sparrows Point, Edgemere, and all of Baltimore County. And we really believe that supporting this infrastructure agreement will help us do that, which, long term, that helps all of us. We all win. The county's tax base is stabilized and increased through this process. Our neighborhoods are stabilized. There are more jobs. If the more diverse range of jobs we can get, the better. So thank you very much, and hope you'll support the project.
Thank you very much, Ms. Menzer. So Robert Zacharou will speaking now, and next, Howard Needle.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and council members. My name is Rob Zacharou. I'm the president of the Wells-McComas Citizens Improvement Association in North Point. We were chartered in 1956 in the area. We are partners in this coalition. Our organization supports the Sparrows Point Revitalization and Infrastructure Agreement. At our November meeting, after discussion, the entire membership voted unanimously to support this. We strongly urge the Baltimore County Council to join us in supporting this agreement. Thank you very much.
Now,
Thank
hold
you,
on.
sir.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Point of personal privilege. So many of you have heard the story about the mysterious pigs that showed up in Dundalk. Well, Mr. Zacharou was the one that called me and said, please don't hang up. I'm serious. This is really happening. I actually called Doug Anderson on my staff. And what was proven through this whole ordeal with these 7 mysterious pigs that showed up in Mr. Zackrell's backyard is that you are one heck of a pig herder.
Thank you, Mr. Crandall. I appreciate that, and there was no doubt in my mind you were going to bring that up today.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Those are the
Job well done.
Those are the pigs from outer space?
Well, we're not sure. The jury's out on that.
Okay, next we'll call up former delegate, Mr. Howard Needle, and Ruth Goldstein. You could.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. I'm looking at my new councilman, Izzy Patoka, with great reassurance. We're expecting wonderful things from him, and I know he'll deliver. I am the president of 1,000 Friends of Pikesville, and you're probably wondering why I'm testifying here on behalf of Sparrows Point Development, because what revitalizes Sparrows Point, Dundalk, Essex, helps with the revitalization of every old community in Baltimore County. Our purpose is the revitalization of Pikesville, and we are happy to support this project and look for the return of your support for ours. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ruth Goldstein is next, and Danielle Alderson.
Hi, I'm Ruth Goldstein. I'm a member of 1,000 Friends of Pikesville, and I'm a new constituent of Izzy Patoka, and very happy about that. I'm here to reiterate what Howard said and to particularly focus on how the public-private partnership is the underlying anchor for meaningful development, that you can do a project perhaps without it, but it may not accrue as much to the community and to the county as a partnership that involves both sides of the equation. And that's very important for this project that you're discussing now, and looking forward in Pikesville, we are involved in the revitalization of the entire Pikesville commercial corridor, and that includes the 14-acre Armory property that was vacated by the National Guard and is now lying fallow and could be the economic generator that brings Pikesville back to life in microcosm compared to the magnitude of this project, but it's the same principle, and we support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. And Danielle Alderson. And next would be Rahman Omar.
Good afternoon. Growing up in Essex, I did not know many women business owners. My first job was at the East Point Chick-fil-A in October of 1991 when I was a freshman at Kenwood High School. Back then, Essex lacked many of the economic drivers needed to support local business growth, especially for businesses owned by women and minorities. Today, Trade Point Atlantic is expected to create thousands of jobs and generate hundreds of millions in taxes. Growth like that will increase business for women and minority-owned businesses across eastern Baltimore County. Trade Point Atlantic is also recruiting contractors from Maryland-Washington Minority Contractors Association, a nonprofit that represents the minority and women business community. And through their internal MBA outreach program, they're signaling a long-term commitment to diversity in the workplace. It's been over 27 years since I started my first job, and much has changed. I am now the franchise owner of the East Point Chick-fil-A and a strong advocate for women-owned businesses like my own. The Dundalk Edgemere Sparrows Point community is one that values hard work, loyalty, and tradition shown by their support of businesses and organizations that invest in them. The potential for the community in the form of job creation, growth in the housing market, and partnerships with these companies for our schools and community programs has already been evident by the opening of Amazon, Under Armour, as well as TradePoint Atlantic. They are setting a high bar for community involvement and investment. The economic opportunities available for local businesses is evidenced just in my own restaurant by sales increases we're currently experiencing by serving tenants of TradePoint Atlantic. I am confident that TradePoint Atlantic is exactly the type of economic driver we need for such businesses to thrive, and I'm very much in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Alderson.
Ms. Alderson, thank you for, it's me. No, you can, no, I just want to thank you for being such a good corporate citizen in the community.
And Mr. Eddie Brooks, you'll be on the on-deck circle. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Omar.
Good afternoon, Council and Chairman.
Edie
my name is
Brooks.
Ramon Omar. I'm the minority contractor in Baltimore City and Baltimore County. My company is Rural Treatment Cleaning Service. We do all the Dick's Sporting Goods, Under Armour, Dollar Trees, Walgreens, and Rite Aids in Baltimore County and Baltimore City. I'm looking forward to doing some work with TradePoint and getting people out there and training them and giving them jobs and opportunities. That's my story.
Sticking to it. Thank you very much, sir. Ms. Edie Brooks and Mr. Keith Taylor.
Good
Hello, Ms.
afternoon.
Brooks.
Good afternoon. I'm Edie Brooks, Vice President of the Turner Station Conservation Teams. And from the beginning, the very beginning in 1888, Turner Station's existence and well-being paralleled that of the steel industry at Sparrows Point. When people migrated from the South, they were drawn to steel jobs. And Turner Station's population boomed during World War II, peaking to over 10,000 residents, becoming the largest historic African-American community in Baltimore County. But when the steel industry declined, we were devastated. And we've been relentlessly revitalizing Turner Station ever since. When TradePoint Atlantic arrived, we finally found a powerful partner who had proven to be open and honest, regularly communicating their plans and beginning to deliver on their promise of 17,000 new jobs at Sparrows Point. But redeveloping 3,200 acres of industrial land with 125 years of pollution from steel and waterways and needs of dredging, as well as antiquated infrastructure, is a monumental task. TradePoint Atlantic confronts this task with a bold vision. As Aaron Tamarchio stated, Sparrows Point is a generational opportunity to remake a generational site. These are exciting times, and our county and federal governments are well aware that now is the time to embrace the largest economic development project in over a generation in Baltimore County. The General Motors White Marsh plant closure, which threatens 300 employees, their families, and communities, demonstrates that now is the time to create more jobs at Sparrows Point. Our new county executive states he hopes to achieve economic stability and security by leveraging anchor institutions and job centers to create jobs that utilize and retain local talent while expanding access to pre-K and community college. There's a doable plan to prepare our students for these jobs. The agreement that the county prudently crafted will move TPA forward faster, more efficiently, and more cost-effectively than the initial TIF agreement. Margaret Thatcher said economists travel on infrastructure. This new investment in Sparrows Point's public roads, sewer, and water projects will boost our economy and employment. Someone said we rise by lifting others. The Turner Station Conservation Team strongly supports TPA in their effort to enter into an MOU with Baltimore County. Please sign this Sparrows Point infrastructure and revitalization agreement in order for TPA to bring more jobs to Baltimore County. It'll benefit both Baltimore County and Baltimore City residents and everyone else, especially the Southeast area. We thank you in advance for your consideration regarding this critical matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out. Yep. Okay. Mr. Taylor, and we see Scott Pappas. Where's Scott? There you go. He's here. Okay.
Good afternoon, Council and Chairman. My name is Keith Taylor. I'm the president of the Sparrows Point North Point Historical Society. Sorry about that. I'm getting older. I am a former steel worker. I am a retired Baltimore County teacher, and I'm a veteran of foreign war. The community and the Historical Society is asking Baltimore County to support the historical Penwood Fields for recreation use and historical value. The only fixtures left from Bethlehem Steel in its 3,200 acres is a lamppost and a truckload of bricks and the Penwood Fields. And by the way, I want to let everybody know that planning for the future without a sense of history is like planting cut flowers. And that's Daniel Bornstein. He's a Librarian of Congress and wrote many books. The historical Penwood Fields located on Trade Point Atlantic's property known as parcels 3A and 3B. These fields are the original peach fields that was deeded to Thomas Sparrow from Lord Baltimore in 1652. The fields were used for recreation in the late 18th century and through the 20th century. The Sparrows Point YMCA and Dundalk YMCA would play a football game, the Steel Bowl, every year for decades on Thursday, Thanksgiving Day. Thousands of people would come out to watch the football game to claim bragging rights in the mill come Monday. The Historical Society would like the fields to be preserved. We would like to build a recreation center and recreation fields. We would like to have a heritage center / museum. We could have a heritage park to hold concerts, sports tournaments. We could have weekend soccer, lacrosse, wrestling tournaments. The Sparrows Point girls soccer team won 6 state championships in a row. It's a record in the state of Maryland. You would create instant revenue with a rec field and a rec center. As you well know, in Ocean City, thousands of people come down to soccer tournaments. The retail section from Trade Point Atlantic would be filled with eateries and people eating at the sites and things of that nature. Could I have some more time? Thank you so much. I was talking to Ed Hale Jr. about weekend soccer tournaments and how they generate huge amounts of revenue. I asked him where he takes his kids for soccer tournaments, and he replied, Columbia, Maryland. I asked that if he ate lunch or dinner in between games, and he replied, yes. I replied and said, that's why Howard County is one of the richest counties in America. Forbes has ranked Howard County among the richest counties in the U.S. For 2017. I think Baltimore County could have that same revenue generated through recreation and the historical fields. I've talked to Michael Barnes, who is one of the curators for the SS John Brown built by Bethlehem Steel. The Society visions that the John Brown be docked at the Sparrows Point Shipyard. It's only fitting and to be used as a floating museum with a diner on board. The Heritage Center / museum could produce tours going to Todd's Inheritance, to Fort Howard, and to the John Brown. I consider this to be a tremendous opportunity for the community, Trade Point Atlantic as well, Baltimore County, and the state of Maryland. We have the ability to turn change into opportunity. As the old saying goes, more hands lessen the work. This is our time, and we need to strike when the iron is hot. And the Historical Society and the people of Southeast Baltimore would love to support for this. We would love your support for this project.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Scott Pappas and Ms. Bergman, you'll be next. Four more to go. Four more. This is it. 1, 2, 3.
Well, I want to thank all you good people for getting elected. A lot of same faces, one new one from what I see here. What I see here today is 2 questions. Let me move a little bit here. Is number 1, does Redwood Capital or Trade Point Atlantic need the money? In other words, can they do the job okay without the county taxpayer money? And the second question is how does it really benefit the county taxpayer? That's what this is really about. Now, we want to get jobs out of this. We want to see us prosper. The question is what is the local community getting out of this? Traditionally, when we have a PUD, which this is like a PUD on steroids, okay, what we do is we get a benefit from the PUD. Okay, what we see right now is we're really not getting any benefit other than what Mr. Tamaccio said at his last public-facing event, which is we're going to get jobs out of it. Well, the MuniCap, okay, I think I paid was 1-A-1, I'm sorry, state that over 50% of the jobs are not even going to be in Baltimore County. So I don't even want to get into that. The bigger question is this, is that gentleman over there, Mr. Keith Taylor, he brought up the fact that we've got 100 acres over there, okay, that could be used for a regional facility for recreation. Mr. Crandall knows that we have been starving for recreational fields down there. He'll be the first one to admit it, and he, I think, would give his back teeth to give it. I know he loves this community, and that's why I know he's back there 100% batting for us. The problem is we need to get our partner, and I hear this word thrown around like candy, partner. Okay, we're partners with Trade Point Atlantic. Well, I want my partner, okay, to divvy up and take not only 5 acres, but I'd like to at least get the entire acreage of Site A and Site B, okay, set aside in a memorandum. Now, I'm not saying he's got to give it to us. I'm not saying he's got to sell it to us. What I'm saying is that we include in this bill here, this legislature, this policy, okay, a stipulation that says, okay, when the environmental issues are cleaned up, now that is whether it's fast land or not, because in 1999 and 1998, Schnabel and ATC did preliminary studies all the way as far as an environmental phase 1 assessment and determined, okay, that property there is clean property. Now, what we're asking here is very simply is that our friends, Mr. Biscotti and Jim Davis, who might I add, okay, are multi-billionaires and owners of a $12 billion a year revenue corporation. Okay, I don't even worry. They need the $80 million to give it to them. I really don't care. My question is what is the community benefit out of this deal? We need the fields that were traditionally and historically, as my colleague pointed out, used by Bethlehem Steel in 1946 on, until they destroyed, okay, the company town there. So what I'd like for you to do, I'm going to send this, okay, to the county lawyer, okay, this here document, and I'd like for all you guys to look at it, and I'd like for Mr. Tamarchio to look at it and seriously consider donating a substantial amount of area to build there, okay, an equally, or if not better, because Edgemere Sparrows Point is the #1 rec council in Baltimore County. We'd like to have one at least equal to what we have over there at our good friends in Turner Station. They recently got awarded an entire gym, the track that goes on and on and on. So please, gentlemen, think sincerely about this, because as everybody said in this room, we're not coming around, okay, again. This is a one-time, once-in-a-lifetime deal. Thank you very much for your time, and again, congratulations on your election.
Thank you, Mr. Pappas. Ms. Bergman, and then Renee Cooper. You'll be next.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I'm here today because I heard you're trying to give the Port of Miami some competition. So this is what I'm looking at here. This is a big deal. I've heard multiple community members talk about what this could possibly be legendary for Baltimore County. I really do appreciate seeing that there is a building of infrastructure for Sparrows Point. I see that there's been common sense approach to add and help the acreage of land with the fire department and the police department. But I will tell you, from 4 years of experience in advocating for a new Lansdowne High School in my community, I think it will go a long way for the Sparrows Point community that is currently over capacity to have land donated to them for the schools to participate in this growth, because it's going to grow. It's going to bring jobs. It's going to bring more families to the area. And it's going to be a really big deal, because today is a big deal. And I think that has to be planned ahead, because if it's not planned ahead, we're going to continue doing what we do, which is community against community being pinned against each other for who's going to go next, who's going to get the new building, whether who's going to get the new firehouse or who's going to get the new school. Like, we can't do that to ourselves anymore. So please, yes, set a legend for Baltimore County. Give the Port of Miami some competition. I want some cruise ships, because I like going on cruising. My husband's going to retire in 5 years. But yes, give that extra land. You told me you had plenty of land. So dedicate some of that acreage for our schools and our education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's Renee Cooper. Renee Cooper going once, going twice. Chris Mudd.
I yield my time. Thank you for your
You yield your time, Chris?
Sir.
Isn't this billable, Chris? Okay. All right. Well, let me just say that I certainly appreciate everyone coming out today, both for and against the project, and taking the time out your day to let us know how you feel about it. This is a very important project, and it's good to see so many people here in support and just making their wishes known. So this is the best part about government, is when we engage the public, and we certainly appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you very much. Have a great day and a wonderful holiday season. Thank you very much.